Good morning. Guess who? I hope you're all doing well. It's Bunto. Right now it's 6/26/2018. I know you haven't seen me all for a long time. Well, let's get back into it. Well, the reason I'm making this video is that I have a friend now. Her name's Rachel DuPre. And I'll just read her posting and you can, acquaint yourself with her writings. She's really singular. That's the only thing I can say at this point. Um, what happens is that I read everybody's comments and everybody's posts practically every day on G Plus, and as many of you know, my replies are kind of terse, and if you're not thinking a little bit below the surface, you won't get them. So I reply accordingly, and then you'll see. I don't want to spoil it. No spoiler alerts, but when you encounter somebody like that, you have to realize that the medium of just writing down your thoughts in a thread, I am a writer, is just to me, I am very lazy in a way, and it's sort of like I know I have to get on cam and just sort of express my mind, at least read it, and digest it at the same moment instead of just writing uh, to a level that is just not satisfactory of depth. So why don't we start? Let me see if I can get the screen share going. I'm glad you're all doing well, I hope. Let me see. Application window. All right, let me start here. Okay, we got this Bunto's thing running. Okay, let me see if you guys can see this one. Yeah, it looks like you guys can see this one. Okay, this is Rachel DuPre. Alrighty. Hold on, guys. I'm still scrambled eggs, man. I haven't been on here in a long time. Okay, Rachel DuPre. Home is where the heart is. See, I am doing a new thing. June 4th, 2018. This is she started the post. I thought it'd just be proper instead of just jumping into my replies and the back and forth there that you have the basis of where it's coming from. I'm not an atheist, but I endorse absolutely many of the arguments and criticisms brought by atheists regarding formal religion. I start with the most basic fault as demonstrated by many Christians and Muslims. We look backwards, not grasping the new adventures and new discoveries of the modern world. We have archaic rituals and practices, follow the authority of writers with less intellect, wisdom, or knowledge than the modern age, ignore the continuous evolution of the human mind, our greater intelligence, our wider understanding of our surroundings. We treat stories as historical accounts when abundantly they are not. Well, honesty. And throughout, we miss the greatest of past teachers and her advice. The young prophetess Isaiah, faced with a captured people and one whom did not respect her vision of escape and a new kingdom free from captivity, she wrote, "Turn your back on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." Well, that's, the low hurdle to be a prophet. Okay, Paul would later reflect the same. As Christians, we are a new thing, a new creature, and we find this also in Jude's letter. Islam, right, contains the same principle, the duty fiqhi, that every Muslim has a duty to refresh our faith, contrary to the growing heresy of Salafism, which would have us look backwards. And we have a duty to do new things and to be open to new beliefs. All right, I don't adhere at this point in my life to anything mystical. So if you all are just coming upon me for the first time, it's a basis, a root, substance. The new thing is learning from and respecting other beliefs. Right. Part of responding to Isaiah, Paul and Jude, is being open to the intellectual challenge of atheism, right? It was around back then, and to recognize that we can learn from all beliefs, including atheism. Atheism as belief. All right, just sort of sit on that for 5 seconds, all right? Okay, atheism as belief. I believe there is no God, and I'm going to use that to my benefit. I don't know. It's sort of like I believe there is no Santa Claus. I'm going to use that to my benefit. It sort of follows in my mind that way. Part of that is recognizing that our current language and intellectual concepts are vast compared with the time of writing of our religious texts, obviously. So we are better equipped to redefine them to meet our better, fine, and modern understanding of social values. The abolition of slavery, of course, is just one example of where modern social values have ignored a literal interpretation of religious texts written at a time when slavery was embedded in our culture. Fair enough. Abandoning the literalism of our religious texts becomes obvious. I love that. When you farm, for there are so many stories based on traditional farming methods, and our world would starve if we ignored modern contributions of science and agriculture. Proof that I have progressed is that I use horses rather than the biblical ox and an ass, though I am not yet advanced as to use a tractor. Humor. Part of doing a new thing is recognizing that our sacred texts are mainly allegorical, i.e., stories to illustrate right behavior, or right values and right responses for a culture set in a particular time. This is apologism. And when telling a story, there is an inevitability that you will draw from and reflect the culture and technology of your time. These stories still tell us much, but they are written for the understanding and comprehension of a world that we have developed and grown beyond. Okay, here's the real, you read this thing and okay, well, just some sidetracking. I read it. I want to say something, but then you come upon something like this. Religion is a relay if it offers new insight. Basically, okay. Put another way, if our religions have been successful, then this is measured in changes in behavior and values, thus changing our starting point from that of the ancients. If we have not learned from religion by now, then it is valueless. From this new starting point, we can grow yet further, but this needs new targets. All right. In my mind, this has always been the argument of taking an old cart and pushing it off a hill, and then calling that a 777 Dreamliner, and like trying to something that is obviously archaic and anachronistic, trying to make it still have the weight that it attributes itself back then to now. It's impossible. I mean, you can't use something that has been transcended and superseded. You can appreciate its historical value, of course, but to use it in some way that it was originally intended is impossible. So many of the values that were once new as part of early Christianity are now embedded in a secular society. True. We don't need religion, therefore, unless it offers new insight into new values. Right, like we want to use religion. Okay, how does this thing work? I haven't been on in a long time. What do I want to do? I want to go back to I don't even know if let me see. Hold on a second, guys. Let me piddle around here. Okay, that's working. How do you do I got some viewers. Well, I want to see if there's any comments. See, that's what I'm trying to get at. Sorry, guys. I haven't used this in such a long time. Okay, if I click here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let me mute this shit. Hey, listening in. Hey, it's Faith. Let me say hi to everybody first. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm gonna keep going, as per request. All right, so just to kind of encapsulate. Okay, we've gotten to a post where you've met a new person, Rachel DuPre, who obviously has put some thought behind her religious beliefs, and she's has some versing, wouldn't you say, about the sacred. She picks the verses that she likes, and now she comes upon the idea that hey, we can still make this work about religion. Okay, so let's talk about the facet that she really prizes about religion. It's the visions, that it's the mystical part, that you are sitting in a room and the outside supernatural forces, spiritual, talk to you and gives you knowledge that you could use. This was an ancient idea, of course, that at this point, we've superseded it with something since the Enlightenment called method, science, and method put together, and we've built upon that to where like we can establish what is real, actual within reality. Okay, the needness of visions. Ruby provides the theological argument, I don't know even who that is, for the provision of divine messages being constantly a new thing. Sufism talks of every generation having a prophet, i.e., someone whose vision of the need for religion to modernize is God granted. Okay. Okay, God knows who he's going to deliver the message with. All right. Here I expand on this theology, drawing from my own conversations. Right. Okay, conversations with other mortals, I imagine. I once was in discussion with a fellow visionary and seer whom questioned my own visions, and so I put us both to the test. Excellent. What new thing have our angels told us? My visions say nothing new, he replied. My visions reinforce the Gospels. Oh dear, was my response. Then your visions are not the genuine thing. We already have the scriptures, as Christ told us. We have been taught that God will send no further reinforcements of the scriptures in the story of the rich man and Lazarus, Luke, whatever. A vision is about offering new insight and direction, a new description relevant to today's cultural language and social challenges. Okay. And good, and pray you learn something new and open your heart and mind to the new adventures of God. She apologizes. That's one of her traits that, she'll say something that she feels, if it does lend offense, she wants to quickly apologize. I can be very pompous sometimes and regret my harsh words on that occasion, but my observation is that we are sent visions and have the gift of prophecy, not to look backwards, but to stretch our thinking so that we can carry our faith forwards. Okay, we want to use religion. Pope Francis summed this up when he said, our faith is newness, harmony, and mission on Pentecost Sunday 2013. Harmony is perhaps the new thing. Even after 4,000 years, our definition of peace is negative, i.e., absence of war. Yet the 1940s to present have shown us that an absence of war can be achieved through concentrative annihilation. Conflicts nowadays, huh? Is a world under constant threat really at peace? The new insight of my own vision includes a vision I share with Yosef, then a cardinal, wow, which saw the vast majority of Christians and Muslims sleepwalking into oblivion. Not hell, but a place of time with no eternal life and God, because we had failed to appreciate the very simplicity of our faith. So it's always our fault. I want you all to know here, it's like that's, one of the pillars of religion is that you are to blame. This thing is perfect. It's you who are not getting it, okay? Newness, constantly learning and doing new things. Harmony, finding peace through compassion and respect. A mission. Okay, so let's have some bullet points here. To do good things and to preserve life and our planet. As my own Quran says, yet alas, many of my faith have failed to grasp this. Love it. If we believe in one God and do good things, then we gain God's reward. Okay. The rest of all religions is extraneous to this and bluntly unnecessary except to reinforce us in doing good deeds. That's interesting. Even belief in God remains something that can happen at any time in life if we keep an open mind. All right, this is a good paragraph. Okay. If we believe one God and do good things, then we gain God's reward. That we can. They always accuse science of reducing things, and then one can reduce their own sacred text to a simple credo, and if you don't get this credo, then the rest is moot, right? I mean, all the, what would you say? The savagery, the barbarism within sacred texts, is, I don't know why they even wrote it in there if there was just a basic credo. The rest of all religions extraneous to this and bluntly unnecessary except to reinforce us in doing good deeds. To me, that sounds a bit of like the French Revolution, the terror, virtue, that we had to have a little terror to make virtue go far. I don't know. Once faith is simplified in the above way, then it unifies. It no longer possesses a risk of harm, suppression, and oppression. Yeah, that's what's wrong. The concern of atheism nor conflict. The concern of atheism and theism. Belief in God becomes a no harm individual determination with no adverse consequence to others whom surround us. Okay. Let me end it and then I'll just cap. Okay, since the Gospels and Quran were written, we have learned so much more about our universe and about social values and social justice. This includes respect for diversity, again found in the Quran as one of its most important and rare statements of philosophy. Rare. The diversity of faiths and beliefs in the world is God-given to allow us to learn from other peoples, to allow us to compete in doing of good deeds. When we die, God will explain all differences in faith and reward our good deeds. Okay, just to step out and just cap. Okay, I'll pick up again a humble request. Because that's her money, part of the whole post. One wants to make religion work. One wants to, okay, well, how can I say this? One who's been scientifically based would, can look back at religion and seek it to work and pick out things that is the most benign of any religion, be it Islam or be it Christianity. we're all in this together. We all have things that we can contribute, and at the end, God will explain it to us, what it all means. The thing is that that's the idealism of religion, right? You could say that the same thing is, in a way, idealism of science, science fiction. We think about the future, we imagine what science can do. We, use our idealism with science, and we can imagine things, we imagine the future. And so one can do the same, the converse with religion. We imagine, once we get religion working for peace, getting on track for all of us, then we can imagine what it can do. The thing is that idealism is what it is. It's a conception process. It's nothing that is actually based in reality. Let me see. I need to take a breath here, but the thing is that, what I want to cap is that you need to have a firm respect for what reality is at a certain point of your life. Even if you have to anthropomorphize it, make it into a being that you can sort of understand as a human, you have to respect reality. You can't bend reality around your idealism and say that is any way a solution to what we see in reality. Um, we see a lot of meaningless suffering, right? So you have to admit, like, what is the basis of that? What is the basis of that suffering, and what is its solutions? How can we approach, fixing something like that? And it has been shown, now ever since the Enlightenment, that religion was found lacking. That, yeah, you can say that the religious people build the hospitals and the orphanages and stuff, but really it's science that pushes progress forward. It invents the vaccines, invents the healing, it puts forth the situation, it puts forth the foundation for suffering to lessen. The religion in its way is not looking at it like an idealistic way of getting all of mankind's mind on track, but what it is, it's a business. It's more like a concern of a few people in power who want to take advantage of the credulous. But now I'll do what she does. I apologize if that's harsh to anybody who's not in tune with that sort of thought, or that thought has not crossed their mind, or it has crossed their mind and they don't wish to say it publicly. But one can look at religion and definitely see that the man-made aspects of it are the most evident. I'm trying to be polite here. Let me go back and look at comments. Maybe they got something to pitch in, say how crazy I am. Hey, Shaddy. Hi, hun. Hi, everybody. Now go ahead and comment in, any sort of rebuttals or stuff. All my friends. I haven't seen you guys in a long time. Talked to them. Haven't been on Hangouts. Just been, laying low. A lot of caretaking. Okay. Oh, okay. A person with deep religious convictions comes online and writes a big post, and then I come by and destroy her world, right? No, I just, what I do is I look at everybody's posts, and then I want to see if there's any depth in it, any sort of, resonance. And then I saw this person, she has tons of it, and I've talked to her back and forth previously. So then, commented it, and I haven't even got to the point where she, offered a bit of a response to my response. But let me see if I can go ahead and cap this right here. Okay. Let me Kindle down, but all right. It's a long one, so maybe I'll just cap it right here. A humble request to readers of this post. To any theists reading this post, I suggest we listen to the criticisms and challenge of atheism. Because if we stand still in faith and argue for our story accounts of the universe, despite the clearest observation, right, of our eyes, then it is small when we are criticized and accused of delusion. Well, basically, yes. And then there's also the morality question. To close our eyes to what surrounds us because we follow a story as if it was their historical account is indeed a delusion. The creation story, that of Adam and Eve, provides some insights to the behaviors linked to the human condition, promises of a world broadly accurate in reflection of condition. Right, she is kind of windy. The story of Noah reflects in part some of the terrible floods that affected our psyche and verbal history, but these can be explained, of course. Embellished from memory, but also merged into one giant flood in racial memory. But to follow them, well, the Noah flood story was derived from the Gilgamesh, the epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerians. To any atheist reading this post, what some theists cannot do, myself included, who is close our eyes to our visions. To do so would be delusional, i.e., to deny the observations of our own eyes is the very definition of delusion. Okay. All right. Okay, I ask you to maintain an open mind, open to the possibility, as we were taught in science, that science is limited and thus cannot provide a comprehensive description of the universe. Only what we determine, okay, where to start? Only what we can determine with our frail and inadequate human senses and the design of methods and instruments that magnify our senses. Okay. The science is limited trope. Okay. For some reason, I just thought of Cliff Stamp. Okay, science is limited trope. People who are religious tend to look at science and see its possibilities and then realize that it has transcended religion, so they want to attack the method. And so your first step is saying that, well, there's things that are beyond science's scope, that there are things beyond this reality, that there is the supernatural, that there are things that science will never explain. And so, God is one of those things. To me, this is always like a hiding place for the God concept, that you can say, well, God invented science and he can, step outside of it. So science can never detect, where his location is exactly. What's he doing? What's he about? What's his substance? What's his manner of working? It just doesn't wash after a while, because it's sort of like saying, here's this wonderful mystical being that, no matter what goes down, the kid gets his face blown off, the airplane crashes, something terrible happens, a suffering, that we just don't understand. It's a mystery of God's ways, right? The thing is that God becomes so transparent, it really doesn't need to exist. You need to sort of explain phenomena that you assert have some sort of agency upon our reality. So in order to do that, a tool that we have is science. Like science, it's not necessarily our senses, DuPre. It's that, we can reason and see the behaviors of other objects upon other things, and we can deduce that such a thing exists, right? For example, dark matter, black holes, dark energy, that we can suspect that there's other factors that we quite cannot see with all our senses and our instruments, that we can ascertain our real in our reality. We could put forth a theory, and until we arrive at the point where science can establish that these things exist, then we can, use the theory. Okay. Even my dogs see, hear, smell, taste, and feel more than I do, Gulp, but I would be dread a world defined by their observations because of their habit of condensing all observations and deductions down to the basic principles of hunger, love, anger, suspicion, and sleep. I hear smell rabbit, can taste the rabbit. I know it cannot hurt me becomes I eat rabbit. The basic dog can catch the rabbit, intelligent dog language. Yet we are also in danger of condensing knowledge into, I believe, what I can see through science and refuse to explore other experiences. Okay, why doesn't religion want to play with science? Why doesn't it, get in there with us and say, all right, you have this tool, this is how I operate? And no, we have to rely on visions, we have to rely on, sacred scripture, we have to rely on prayer. Okay, what happens is that, earlier in the post, she says that, now we have to transcend, we have to go forward, progress with the tools that we have in order to make something new within religion. in order to be something new within religion, we have to make it work with science, right? It has to have some validity, have some substance that we can use it in a way that, in a predictable way that we can, derive answers and solutions from it. There's a way of testing a dogma in order to see that if it holds any water. The dogma that the earth is flat, we test it and we see that it does not hold water. The dogma that NASA's entire fake and the moon landing was false, we test it and we could see that there's, elements that are very weak in that point of view for that dogma. Okay, I don't want to get windy. My point is that our grasp of the universe is greater than our senses, yet still limited by those senses. Our grasp is greater than our senses, yet still limited by our senses. Well, how do we know that? Sure wasn't with religion. The obverse to that point is we maintain our curiosity, as Hawking advised us, part of his legacy. So we should not close the door on visions, but rather examine them through discussion with those whom experience them. We can do better than that, honey. There is diversity here that includes welcome and unwelcome elements and consequences that are worthy of exploration. So there is a world of visions that is open for anyone with an open mind and the curiosity to explore it, because it is not a world that has been adequately examined by science, okay? In part because we have yet to define a method of study that could test what is fundamentally unobservable. We are in danger of dismissing something which to some of us is more real because it has been experienced. Okay, testing, right? That much of science where we rely on secondhand testimony, i.e. results of tests, etc., please, made by other scientists or a science institution, and which we accept based on their credibility. Okay, honey, you go to the university, right, and you start espousing, an accredited university, please, sign 99% science, and you start saying that, it's based upon dogma. It doesn't work that way. The lack of scientific study also means that visions are poorly analyzed and described, poorly cataloged, rarely communicated, and have wrongly become seen as elitist and exoteric. This apologist. Most of science we will be lucky to observe. Most of science we will be lucky to observe in person in our lifetime. So must accept or reject the experience and experiment of others. And so I suggest it is with the belief in God. Well, it gets scrambled eggs there. Let me just sort of look here and gather my thoughts. Okay, let me read things. Hey, handsome. Okay. Hi, honey. Call me lazy. No, I'm getting old and heard almost all the arguments for gods. I'll be back later in pain, but not related to gods or devil. Well, sorry about that, Jeff. Okay. A young person, right, wants to make religion work. Great. A young person with a mind who wants to reconcile it with science, wants to make religion work. There shall be some, obstacles. It depends on what you define religion as. Do you define it as myth, that you can study, sure, and see where the myth derived from? You can make it work that way. But to, derive it as some sort of force that can work with science in order to provide answers, I believe that, there never was there, and certainly it has passed that time. Let me take a breath here and just sort of gather my thoughts. Thanks for listening. Hold on. Okay. Well, anyway, blah 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 blah. A lot, huh? I can finish this. Hold on, guys. But let me see, because I want to do her justice, her post, because I think it's something when a person spills their guts like this. A young person wants to make religion work. This is how she can see it work. Okay, just to go back a bit, let me backtrack and see if I can, give the other end of the spectrum, the atheists looking at visions, right? I've thought of that first. It's, let's say God comes down and says, "Hey, here I am, everybody." It's all true what religion that says. what are you going to think? The thing is, right at that point is that if we see the God, Jesus comes down from the sky and the trumpet blares and everything, we still have to test. I mean, I'm thinking of Shani now. It's sort of like, not to be rude to Jesus or anything like that, but we still have that aspect of science to test what is really going on. It's like, what is that thing coming down out of the clouds? It looks like Jesus, it sounds like Jesus. Let's test it. And we find out that it's a, KGB scheme device that they've put together and rammed into our mass media project to tell us what to do. I mean, we still have that ability to test to see what is real in reality via science only. I mean, not so much through sacred scripture. It's not the religion's fault, Shani. It's the fault of people, humans, who can take it and abuse that, element. They see that we have this long history of sacred scripture, and they can pick and choose, well, we can use this to affect our own motivations, our own means against the believers, and have them believe accordingly. It's like the machinations of mortals, not so much the whole meaning of religion, right? They put together religion because they wanted hope. They wanted to put together hope in a fashion, idealism in a fashion that could soothe and succor everyday visions of reality. You see something terrible, a guy get hit by a car, I pray for their family, I hope he goes to heaven, right? That's what religion came about, to sort of organize that, codify that hope, the belief that there's something better than what you just saw in life. That's my belief of religion, a very charitable one. An analysis of visions does not justify religion. Okay. Whether we are experiencing visions or not does not justify the religion we have at present, most, if not all, of which seem to be human constructions limited to the time of writing and also going through stages of amendment or reform or extremism that reinforce a human regime or human rendition, right? But it is important to recognize this teaching of science about its own limitations. Okay, sure. Its own continuous discovery of new things, its constant updating of its theories, and that it is growing so fast as a knowledge base that it is also beyond personal observation. Okay. The thing is, that's why we have method, Rachel. Scientific and religious principles, it's different than religious dogma, Rachel. There is method to science. That's why it changed the game. Okay, scientific and religious principles should align around the value of diversity. And this is just political screed. I just want to blast through this quick. We must not make religious science of religion, providing it's preaching. Our systems of knowledge and rationality are intentionally varied and divergent. So he close down sources of evidence without our thought, and then quotes. At no point has anyone proven that there's a single truth in the universe. Fine. We know, for example, that it is impossible for us to see sufficient the universal system, make assumptions as high as 50% confidence limits. Okay. There's something called the four fundamental forces of our reality. There's many. It's not impossible for us to see enough of the universe to make high approximations of things that are going to happen. I mean, we wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't even be talking to you through the computer if that was not possible. Put bluntly, both atheists and theists should share one common principle. Okay, that's what I like about her, right? That our minds will develop to achieve greater things if we are open to newness and diversity of opinion and belief. This has been understood by almost all atheists I have met instinctively and for some time. It sits at the heart of challenge of atheism when atheism first fought for its own right to be expressed. Okay. It also sits at the heart of cosmological science and evolutionary theory, as well as the sciences of neurology, psychiatry, and psychology. Very good. It is perhaps a wake-up call for theists, one given to us by Isaiah, that theists must be equally open to newness of discovery of the world and the universe around us, something to learn from the integrity of atheism. I believe that too, hon, because when you talk to somebody who's like a radical fundamentalist, they are not open. So it's hard to see what the basis of their religion is, if not to go backwards. So what is the new thing I do? I have said this before and repeat it now. My faith needs to refresh itself to be appropriate for the 22nd century or stand aside. Interesting. First, it must simplify itself, i.e., we believe in one God and serving our fellow man in love and respect, right? Second, it must become less ritualistic, fine. And I will choose to do these things respectively, or he or she choose to, right? Fine. Third, and all above, it must become a religion of absolute peace, recognizing the total sanctity of life and the need to protect our environment. There can be no compromise on these three values. Don't you love that part? Okay, look, fine. The thing is that there's like conversations and conversations in that. What are we trying to do here? Are we trying to make an old thing work, or are we trying to pass it? The new thing I do is simple. I lead a multi-faith community of a few hundred that include atheists and draws from all faith backgrounds, and which first and foremost is united around dual charitable good things. Good. Advocating peace and protecting the environment. Excelente. Yes, I do say prayers, and my community join in and don't as they individually wish. Our prayers are said quietly with eyes closed, and so I have no knowledge of whom does or does not pray, and ultimately, nor should I have. It's not between God and the individual. Okay, do you guys need for me to vamp on that shit? Hold on one second. There we go. Cross paths on JC. I miss you too. Nice to see you. Okay, well, everybody's doing fine out there. Okay. For everybody who knows me, I guess this comes to a point where they accuse me of scientism, but then, let me join in here, okay? Um, you remember how they say, in quantum theory that we have like light. What is light? Is it packets or is it waves? Is it particles or waves, right? So then, it's an interesting question scientifically, right? But then we go back into the religious dogma that we had thousands of years before, and they're asking, should you pray with your eyes open or should you pray with your closed? Does God need to know? That's one of the basis you can think of the God concept, is that is the supernatural entity actually hearing what I'm thinking? I'm praying in silence. My thought waves, right? Is it waves or is it particles? Goes out. Does he capture the waves? Is it going through a medium, or is it just particles, bouncing off? It's nothing, or is there something out there, catching them in a giant collector? Um, See what happens, Rachel, is that one claims something, religiously, and then the scientist and method wants to look. The rationalist, right, wants to look at it and see if there's some sort of thing that he can reconcile with his reality, that we can test it, we can see how it exactly works. um Bunto, you're praying to me, and the way that works is your thought waves go through this medium called, the God medium, and it reaches me eventually. Could reach me a year or two later ago, but it gets to me, and its strength is adverse to its distance, something like that. Some sort of Newtonian principle to how prayer works. But honestly, Richard, none of that is there. I mean, all that religion ends up being is idealism, claims. Um, you look at the morality of it, and you see that there's things there that can be rescued, things that can be salvaged for the benefit of all humans. Sure, but one must always admit that it's essentially a dogma, a philosophy. Peace, the environment, and doing good deeds, right? If God exists, then God will find those whom don't believe in him one day, right? How can we test that? Is God is so much better equipped than that to do so? But key is God will want them because of the good things they do, even if belief must come when meeting God after death. So, you have this atheist who does tremendously good things, opposed to people that claim to believe in God. They died. Does God send them to hell, or does God say, hey, you're good, you're on my team no matter what? That's the idea behind that. If God does not exist, yet our community promotes and does good things, our motivation for doing so is so diverse and individual. For what I won't want change, for whatever motivation is enforced, and single, okay, it's working. There's nothing broken about our case, so why change or fix it by imposing a single belief? Okay, apology. The new thing is thus respect for diversity of motivation that leads to a single mission of harmony, compassion, stewardship, and charity. Fine, I agree. Yet it is an old thing too. Perhaps it is a new way rather than a new thing. I say this because Christ said no different, but blessed the peacemakers, taught us to love our neighbor, reminded us that we are stewards for creation, offered this path as being through acts of charity for the sick, disabled, the poor, the vulnerable, the oppressed, and the prisoner. And my own Quran, right? It's the mixing, the synchronism of religions, of Christianity and Islam. And my own Quran says the same, with instructions to be at peace, with its declared foundation being love, with its command to protect the environment, and our reward for charity and doing good things. So, Rachel wants to take two religions that we got, you know, put them in the bag and mix them her way so it works even better, right? People have been doing this for a while, Rachel. Yes, it is paradoxically an old and new thing to do. Just for too long has religious buried in the simplicity of peace, the environment, and good deeds under a plethora of human ritual and rule. So we come out spring. My spring cleaning has been to throw away all that clutter away. All right, so she's, putting it together in a new way, which is good for a young person to do. All my love, my prayers for those who want them, my silent and unobtrusive prayers for those who don't, but whom I love still, and my absolute and constant prayers for a world peace. So we have this beautiful picture here of a coexist with people getting along. Beautiful color picture, and the comments accordingly. Let me take a look back out and see if anybody wants to say something. Photons, right? Okay, hardcore atheist who absolutely, has no use for the God concept meets Rachel, and Rachel says, "Hey, we can work together," and the atheist says, "Okay, well, let's see what we got, right?" And then she says, first off, she wants to offer. It's like a negotiation, correct? She offers that she wants to throw out ritual and mysticism. Fine. Why are you throwing out ritual and mysticism? Does she ever say that? The thing is that ritual and mysticism is dogma, and it has, don't eat meat on Good Friday, Holy Friday, stuff like that. The old mysticism that all religions have, one finds in the 21st century. Just, it's ritual. It doesn't have use. Don't walk under a ladder because it's bad luck, right? Uh, People must walk under ladders. The mirror breaks. It's not 7 years of bad luck. You know what I mean? It's sort of like all the mysticism one encounters throughout one's experience. One looks at the basis of it and one sees that, that's just myth. It's just, something that was adhered from the past. It can have its, roots in some reality, but I think it's like it didn't. It's so much so that it can't be tested, that it can produce repeatable phenomena. So we put ritual aside and we get rid of mysticism. Okay, what do we got now, Rachel? Okay, let's just go with everybody getting along towards peace. Sure. We all sit in the room. We all say, okay, we're getting along with peace. And then Bunto stands up and says, "This is so great. Good thing we're not religious." And then somebody else will stand up, and object to that. The thing is that, why does Bunto stand up in the room and say, "Good thing we're not religious," is because, he realized that the dogma, that's always been there for thousands of years, must be, passed, bypassed. And the people that still want to adhere to it, be it for one reason or another, through family, through their own psyche, want to adhere to dogma of religion. There's just, it comes in loggerheads. It's just no way it can be reconciled with people that want to bypass dogma. So, I mean, you look at the people that don't believe in God, right? And see, some of them are good, some of them are bad. I'm going to pick out the ones that are good. You may do that, but there's just no way you can just say that, there shall be a uniting under the dogma. I don't think that's even possible. Honestly possible. I mean, it could be, Bunto's in the room and he, really knows that this is the best group in the world, and they're all religious. So he won't ever, stand up and say, well, there is no God. You know what I mean? There is no Santa Claus. And he suppresses that idea, and, maybe he writes it down and buries it in the back of his garden for somebody to find someday that he really did not believe. The thing is that, sure, that works in idyllic sense, but the thing is that people abuse the dogma. I mean, all the time. I mean, we're seeing it now in America. We see it all over the world. People take the religious dogma and abuse it. So it's good to say, hey, folks, there is no dogma. There is nothing there. There is no there to the dogma. I believe that's just what the atheist should say, basically. I mean, the thing is that atheists can say what they want, but what they believe in, I mean, I think they should know, what the basis of their atheism is. And in my case, it's just, I just feel it's been, you know, the idea of the God concept has been superseded. I've made videos about that. Okay, so let's go to the first comment. J Chimpion. I applaud your good intentions. Personally, I am agnostic, right? I freely admit what I do not know. If I know something, then I know it. Belief is another matter entirely. What I believe and what I know are not the same things. Knowledge is self-evident. Belief contains some degree of doubt or perhaps faith in something that has yet to be proven. The preponderance of evidence may point to, indicate, or suggest a conclusion, but this does not represent truth or absolute knowledge, in my humble opinion. Thank you for sharing your post. Sure, I mean, that's, fence sitting, right? Sitting on the fence. All agnostics do that, right? I have videos about that. You can look. And then blah, 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 blah. Let me see. I have a lot of respect for agnosticism. I don't, Rachel. And in particular, the position of not accepting things that are not and cannot be proven, but waiting for time when proof one way or the other may exist. Agnosticism to me is basically God-fearing without the God. Okay, my observations on doubt, proof, etc. move, however, towards the general belief that we are accepting things rather than really having them proven to us. This is a religious person saying this. We accept much of history, i.e., we accept oppositions to other science, and we accept the limitations of our own senses. Okay, and then she goes into a bunch of legalisms. I say this, my experience in courtrooms was to see this time and time again. The court, the thing is what they can evidence that they can prove. The court is a setting, a human setting of what they can prove with the evidence, right? And not really exactly what happened. That's been proven time and time again. Think of all the cases before DNA, right? Some guy gets sent to jail for 40 years, and then they do the DNA test, and his DNA doesn't matches up, so they let him out, right? So there you go with the court setting, right? The court was wrong in arresting that person. And then she does a nice thing, blah blah blah. Thanks. And the only thing is, like, you read, my thinking, guys. I read something like that, and rather than come in this, I just put together one of my videos, and then look at this, guys. She answered. The thing is that the answer in mind, the reason I answered is because it was more of apologism. Here's my reply to her. Good morning, sweetie. I simply conclude all views may be wrong, right? And a viewpoint, this is what she says, right? That cannot see this of itself is more wrong than any other viewpoints. To me, that was just postmodernism. There really can be no refuge in it. Philosophy, theology, and mysticism have never established anything as actual in reality. Only science and method have for our indisputable progress. The meta question underneath all reason is why something exists, right? We see something within our reality. We want to know how it is there. That's what we're doing with the God concept, right? And its utility towards peace. Now, I really, the reason I put this part in, guys, people that know me, is that, this is, a courtesy to be nice to somebody who is a young person who wants to change the world for the better, right? So, everybody accuses the atheist of being a satanic entity that, against God, hates God, but the thing is that, when one finds that there is nothing to the dogma, wants to say that the alternative, which was science and method that transcended the dogma, there is much utility in that towards peace, none that you will find left within religion. And then she answered, forgive me, but theology and mysticism have never established anything actual. Only works if you use science-limited interpretation of established. Okay. What happens is this, you get into don't step on my blue suede shoes, right? When you start, I'm a religious person, and, science isn't good enough, especially when it comes to evaluating my position and finding out what's real about it. Then she goes back to legalisms, right? The court of law in every country in the world regard God as established as actual based on testimonial evidence of beings over thousands of years of history. Well, honey, I mean, people thought the same for when, the sun went around the earth, and when, other things in life, that unicorns existed, so forth. Some scientists don't like that, so invent a definition of evidence to exclude that testimony. Tough. Well, the thing is that you say the court case also, but there's the court also relies on scientific evidence too, Rachel. Um, that the thing about the court analogy, metaphor, is that we want to find out what is the truth. So we put the whole religion to the court case, and we want to see, what is real about it. Well, we have all these evidence, all these, witnesses saying that there is a God, right? How did they come to that point to saying that there is a God? We look at that, we also see all the family, and then there's, we see the entire trappings of dogma saying that, that our nation has always been Islamic. My family's always been Islamic. They took me to church every day. This is why there is a God. We can see that there's not so much scientific evidence there as there is, what do you say, coercion, compulsion to believe in this dogma. I'm not sure anybody's really still listening. Thing is, I'm getting tired. The thing is, okay, what's so striking about your posts, your replies, Rachel, is that you bring up Sagan and Hawking. The other two guys I really don't know. The thing is that Hawking, he was, I mean, there's no way that he would stand up for something saying that, science didn't have the answers. You know what I mean? It's like he wanted to talk about the God concept in a scientific way. He didn't ever wanted to say that it was impossible. Like the last thing I saw Hawking did was in the last 10 years was that one Curiosity, is there a God? And he went into his belief that he doesn't believe, there's no need for a God. That's the way he said it, with things that science has derived from our knowledge of reality. So it's not, your point saying that he says, there's some things that science will never figure out. I mean, I just cannot see that coming out of his mouth. Um, she goes on and on and on. Okay, but the thing is that what's striking, Rachel, is that there's a lot of attacking the method. Anyone trained in academic science, this, i.e., knows that most of science is based on someone else's observation and experiment. But the thing is, you can repeat these experiments. You can repeat the testing. Somebody says that light goes at 10 miles an hour. Well, when you test the speed of light, you find out that that's not true, Rachel. So, I mean, you can't say that science is based upon the pillar of authoritarian of authority. It's tested. Science also actively develops and promotes personal observation, i.e., recognizes that its own experience will have more meaning to us than to read of somebody else's results. I don't believe that at all, Rachel. Keep our minds open. Don't follow false claims of some branches of academia that their branch is more evidence-based or more established or more real, because they're all false claims based on a subjective assessment. All right. Branches, right? The branch of scientific astrology does not, adhere to the rigorous strictures of physics. The branch of physics. Why is that? Because physics can be tested, in a predictable manner, while astrology definitely cannot, right? So that's what goes on there, Rachel. Put another way, what is the credible evidence for establishing the basings of Hastings as actual, or do we accept it happened without evidence to do so because years of testimony to that effect? Well, there's archaeological evidence. There's all way of approaching it methodologically, not so much by, going by any sort of mythos. But we can use the mythos, right, Rachel? Very little of established history has an observed scientific evidence base. So should we ignore history? Therefore, I don't believe that one bit, kiddo. Sad world indeed that turns its back on our history for no better reason than it cannot meet scientific method. And then she even did another one. Okay. History that cannot meet scientific method. Like the thing that jumps to my mind is the story of Nazareth, right? That Nazareth existed, in Christ's time, when archaeological evidence says differently. There's Rene Psalms, the myth of Nazareth. We find out that in the Jesus story, where Herod slew all the children based on the seers telling him that the Messiah was born, right? So he goes on and kills all the firstborn and so forth. But there's no record of that. There's no There's no things that are said in the Bible, you know, floods, uh, the walls of Jericho, so forth. You can even go back to the minimalists that look at the King David to see how much is real in that mythos, and they find out things are do not support that point of view that is put forth in Scripture. I mean, at a certain point, the scientist, the historian has to say, well, these things might not have happened, or these things definitely could not have occurred, right? The sun staying still in the sky, because it defies, everything we know about reality. And then, the person has to go back and call forth a miracle, that they have to use some sort of agency to allow the fact that, we can't, that the thing cannot meet any sort of scientific method. It's not sad. That is not a sad world. It's not a sad world when we know the truth, Rachel. Um, it's the basis of all experience of knowing. Um, what happens here is that you want to be sentimental towards religion, even though it's been proven, you know, that it has plenty of holes in it, right? Sure, you can be sentimental toward it, but to put forth as some sort of functional, um, basis for, going to the 22nd century, as you said, I mean, I just find all sorts of, what do you say, contradictions in that, things that, hard to swallow. But, I won't read your second part, even though it's good. The thing is that, I just appreciate your long responses. And I was thinking, well, I can just write my usual terse response. The only thing is that, it just wouldn't get to the point of all the points that you bring up as a young person, which I believe, should be commended, but definitely, you must have that sounding board, in your community of things that are, questionable. All communities, they should talk, see what they really believe in, like Champion. But good luck to you and your community. I hope they post a lot more of their own stuff. We have our little group, right? Go through our own conversations. I would like to see their conversations, what they say. Um, I do appreciate all points of view, right? I mean, information. You can stack the information your way. You can look at it. You know, that's one thing about reality that we can both, enjoy together. But I'd just like to thank everyone you listening, listening to my friend Rachel and her posts. Hope you're all doing well. And, hope to talk to you again. It was nice to get back in the saddle and having a broadcast again. So, wish you all well. Take care.